We recap day one of the World Juniors with 4 games to break down for you. We'll talk about Jase Pulkkinen and then do a 3 stars of the day segment, all coming up on today's episode of Locked On NHL Prospects.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this podcast, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. I'm Hattie Kalikesh, joined by Sebastian Hai, and on today's show, we'll be breaking down day one of the World Junior Championships group stage. We'll talk about the 4 games that occurred today. We had Czechia versus Slovakia, Canada versus Finland, USA versus Norway, and Sweden versus Latvia. I'll break all those games down for you, talking about who performed well in those games, who we liked, who we disliked, who surprised us, and all that and more. In our second segment, though, we'll talk about a player that is an overager for the 2024 NHL draft, was not picked last year. In fact, didn't even play under 20 last year in Finland, and now is just popping up on every radar and making a name for himself at this World Juniors. We'll talk about Jase Pulkkinen in our second segment. We have to. He's that good. Then in our third segment, we'll do a 3 stars of the day segment. We've chosen 3 stars for you for the day. Players that performed really, really well, either exceeded expectations or gave us exactly what we were expecting and more. So we'll go through them as well in our third segment. But before we get into any of that, first and foremost, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave us a comment letting us know what you want us to talk about next. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, make sure to make us your first listen of the day. All right, so let's get it started here with Czechia versus Slovakia. That was an interesting game, and it was really fun because we had this conversation an episode or 2 ago about which team would be the better one, and I was wrong.
My Slovakian boys came in clutch.
Yeah. Slovakia just bullied Czechia in this game, 6-2. Talk me through. I got up early. You couldn't. I did. And it was.
You did the brutal 5 a.m. wake up, which I was not willing to do. I caught about the third period, and I watched extensive highlights. But the 5 a.m. wake up was enough to.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like the day after Christmas. Did I really want to wake up before the sun was up? I don't know.
I regret it. I am feeling it right now. It is 8 p.m. the same day. I've been up for
too many
hours. Yeah, too many hours. I'm feeling it, but yeah, it was still like a very, very good game. I'm glad I caught it. I was really interested in seeing the Jiri Kulich versus Filip Mešàr matchup. I genuinely expected Jiri Kulich to be way, way, way better than he was in this game. He thoroughly disappointed me, if I'm honest. I remember there was one specific sequence. I watched the whole game with the intermissions and all that. And the first intermission, Czechia was up 1-0. Filip Mešàr gets on air for an interview, the intermission interview. He's glowing about his team. He loves his group. He's saying how, they need to double down on effort, do the right things, play the system, the usual hockey talk, but doing it with enthusiasm and with a motivation that you could see that he knew his team was still in it. Slovakia rallies back with a great effort for Filip Mešàr. The entire second period, he was making great defensive plays. He set up, I believe it was Matthias Shapovalov cross ice, or it was Servek Petrovsky cross ice for a one-timer. He just played fantastically. He drew the penalty that he then helped his team score on. And in the second period, it was Jiri Kulich's turn to hop on the air for an intermission interview in the second period. Completely different. I expected him to come in there with the same energy as Mešàr. It was a complete opposite. He looked disappointed, deflated, started talking about his team. He was offered basically an alley-oop of a question, basically allowing him to just pump up his current group. He was asked about this group compared to last year, and it was like, yeah, it's a different group. There's guys missing. That was basically his answer, right? And then he calls the penalties his teammates took stupid. Like, he straight up said a couple of stupid penalties for my teammates. And then I'm like, okay, well, we'll see how this goes. And then complete thrashing by Slovakia. They end up winning 6-2 with 4 goals in the third period. Yeah, I was really, really surprised with that. I did not expect that from Yuri Kulik. But yeah, a really interesting game, and you were right, absolutely right about Slovakia being better. I did not expect their depth to be as impactful. I really thought Yuri Kulik was going to bring his A game in this tournament, and he did not in this game. I really hope we see more from him in the next game because that was disappointing. But then we have Finland versus Canada.
Indeed.
Yeah, you watched this one. Talk me through what you saw.
I did. Oh my god, so much to see. It was a very entertaining game. I mean, it was close throughout. I mean, it was what I think 2-1 at the second intermission. Like it was really quite a tight game,
Yeah,
and we saw a lot of very talented players play some really good hockey. Like for instance, I think Macklin Celebrini had a tremendous game. Looked like a first liner while playing on the fourth line,
yeah,
and the first line looked quite quiet in my eyes. I thought that the like Geeky and Dumais connection was a bit janky throughout the game. I didn't see much chemistry. There's a lot of like mistimed routes and misaimed passes between the two, and
yeah.
really see much possession that was rather dangerous from that line. But there was a lot of promise, and I thought Canada played a strong game. They definitely doubled down on playing their high intensity checking game, and they brought a lineup specifically to play that style. And we're seeing the entire middle six really make some like excellent plays. Like
Yeah.
that third line with Owen Beck, Nate Danielson, and Owen Allard was really effective offensively. Real team for Finland to play against, always getting down low. So that was fun. And for Finland, we saw some really exciting players too that were standing out. We saw Konsta Helenius be like the number one center and the power play quarterback for the first unit, tasked with every responsibility, which is going to be fascinating to track for the rest of this tournament. Because he's looking pretty good, even though he was kept off the score sheet entirely, I think, in this first game. Emil Hemming was looking a lot more dynamic and fluid in his movements than I remembered from earlier this season, which is nice to see. So there's some more progression there, but it's the defensive core that I thought I was most surprised by. We saw Arttu Karki really put in some really fun offensive zone performances. He assisted the first goal for Finland with a shot from the point in the power play, but Jesse Pulkkinen, right, Hattie?
We'll talk about him. We'll get to him later on.
Okay.
But moving on to USA. Yeah, moving on to USA versus Norway. We need to talk about this. Norway really gave the US a fight. Like they were in this up until the halfway point. And I tweeted, it's so funny. I tweeted out at the first intermission, I was like, if Norway gets through the next 10 minutes without allowing a goal, if they get through half the game without allowing a goal, they're going to be good. They're going to be fine. There's going to be some panic settling in the US roster being like, why can't we score against this Norwegian team that just got graduated to this division, basically has 2 players worth mentioning, 3 maybe. And yeah, basically with 10:01 left in the second period, I was, part of my tweet was like, if the US scores before the end of the first half of the game, the dam's gonna open and this game's gonna like, get away from Norway. 10:01 left in the second period. The USA scores. 2 minutes later, they score again. Like a minute after that, they scored and before we knew it, it was 4-1, and Norway lost. But yeah, who impressed you for Norway? Let's start there.
I thought Petter Vesterheim and Michael Brandsegg-Nygard were really, really impressive in this game. You saw the chemistry that the two of them had on Norway's top line. They play together with Mora in the Hockeyallsvenskan, which makes sense.
Yeah.
And I thought both of them played a really intelligent, high-intensity forechecking game, causing the U.S. a lot of headaches, not necessarily creating a ton of offense directly because, again, we're talking about Norway versus the States here, but causing problems and wreaking havoc. And both players are putting in some really good shifts defensively. Obviously, Brandsegg-Nygard has by far the most impressive toolkit of any player on that Norwegian team. And I'm sure we'll be talking a lot about him throughout the tournament. But Vesterheim was the one that surprised me the most, as well as the goaltender, whose name escapes me right now. I thought that
one.
That was all. He was also really good in the first half of the game. Like he was lights out in the first half, and second half came back down to earth. But I thought Vesterheim was a really, really intelligent, capable, and composed number one center for Norway, which is all you can really hope for in this type of tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. And they have a defenseman who's draft eligible as well. I forgot his name, but
Yes.
he was really good.
He was also very good.
Yeah, exactly. But moving on to Sweden versus Latvia. That was a decent game. I thought that, well, first for US, Gavin Brindley was the best. Just need to say that
Of
he was really,
course.
really good. But for Sweden versus Latvia, Lekarimäki and Filip Bystedt both scored 2 goals each. They separated the umlaut line. Ugren, Östlund, and Lekarimäki were split up. These guys have played together forever, but they promoted Anton Wahlberg to the first line with Östlund and Lekarimäki and dropped down Ugren to play with Filip Bystedt and Felix Ungersorum. Ungersorum was the best player on the ice for me, but he didn't earn a point. I do need to mention Lekarimäki's goal scoring ability has been translating well. He's added some deception and layering into his shot that's been really good. And Filip Bystedt's just a monster. He's going to be a top 6 player for years and years in San Jose. I truly do believe it. He was ridiculous. And shout out to Anton Wahlberg, who scored a goal as well and was really, really good. And obviously the defense is what it is. But something weird happened in that game. Within the first 30 seconds, Elias Salamonson just boards a Latvian player and gets thrown out of the game. 5-minute major. Just like 30 minutes in. Like, good thing they brought 7 defensemen because they would have been in trouble. But yeah, they're actually up for our first segment. We'll get into our second segment where we talk about a very, very interesting overage 6'6" left-handed defenseman who's playing on the top pair for Finland in this tournament. We're going to be talking about Jase Pulkkinen after these messages from our sponsors over at Game Time. If you're looking to buy last-minute tickets to any event in your area, Game Time has you covered. Game Time is a fantastic app that gets you last-minute tickets to any event. They've got tickets up to the last minute and sometimes even an hour after it starts. You can still get tickets to events in your area. This is really useful for me, especially because my work schedule moves around a lot. I can find myself with an afternoon free out of nowhere, and Game Time is a great opportunity in order to get tickets when those free moments in my schedule free up, especially for hockey. But Game Time isn't just for sports. It's also useful for anything from theater to comedy to anything else that you want, that you have your eye on for a ticket. They've got you covered. They've got great deals as well to help you save money. Flash deals, zone deals, which I really like, where Game Time picks the seat. You just have to pick the section, and you get an average about 18% of savings. And with a Game Time guarantee, you can get up to 110% of the difference for your tickets if you find a ticket in the same section and row for less than what Game Time has to offer. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, really simple. Just create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Alrighty, so moving on to our second segment, we'll talk about Jase Pulkkinen. I'm really excited for this because there were some ramblings heading into the World Juniors. This was going to be a player to watch at this tournament, and oh my goodness. First and foremost, let's look at what happened before the World Juniors that led into this, like how this player, got on this roster to start with. Last year, he was under a point a game in the U18s in Finland, which is really low in terms of quality of play. Like, this is not a really strong league in terms of quality. Like, a lot of the draft eligibles, 90% of the draft eligibles you'll see drafted in the draft year are going to be playing under 20 instead of under 18. So he didn't get drafted, obviously, but this year he's well over a point a game in the U20 league. He's played some pro league games in the Mestis and has looked really, really good. I think he's a point a game there as well, right? 2 goals, 2 assists.
He has 2 goals and 4 points in 6 games in the Mestis and 2 assists in 5 Liga games, which also isn't too bad.
Ridiculous. So yeah, this player basically came out of nowhere. We're talking about a 6'6" left-handed defenseman who skates like the wind. Like, his skating is ridiculously good. But that's not even like the best of it. I think the best part of Jase Pulkkinen is his hands, right? Like that to me impresses me more than a lot of things he does in terms of his mobility and his size.
It's the overall fluidity. With the puck on his stick, he looked more fluid to me in this game against Canada than he did without the puck on his stick, which is always a good thing to look out for. And yeah, he was impressive in all 3 zones. Like, I think, like, while you were focusing on the offense, I had my eye on the defensive ability and the transition defending. And in this game against Canada, it was really, really impressive. And I can thoroughly understand why the Finnish coaches have him as their first pairing left shot defenseman over recently drafted players like Arttu Karki, who also played excellently in this game and has been tearing up the OHL as a power play sniper, basically. So Pulkkinen is putting in the work and clearly has progressed a ton in the last year. I'm curious to kind of go digging deeper into the draft footage from last year into this year and just see exactly how that progression occurred. But hats off to our Finnish scout at Dobber Prospects, Annie Karvinen, who mentioned him as a player to watch in our last meeting when none of us other scouts had seen him yet. And she was completely correct. This is a player that I think right now we are already quite confident in is going to feature in our next top 64 rankings at Dobber Prospects, just from the minimal amount of highly impressive tape that we've seen here. Obviously, we'll have to see more of the same to be certain of that, but we've already done a little bit of extra digging into draft tape, and it's looking like more of the same with Pulkkinen. So he's definitely a player that stood out to us today in yesterday's games. And fascinating player. And you also heard that there's a lot of scouts buzzing around him. So just how high do you think he might go on draft day?
Absolutely. I mean, I want to start by saying after that game, he was so good that I was like, I need to see more. So I pulled up our videotaping app and pulled up some tape from his games this season. And this game was not a fluke. Like, he was really, really good. Now, as I was watching those games, I tweeted out about Jase Pulkkinen, and I received a message from a good friend of ours. Not going to name names, but he's in the industry, and he told me that he was at a recent Mestis game on a Tuesday. And this is a Mestis, not a league that's really scouted for many, many players. He said there were like 30 or 40 scouts there taking notes on Jase Pulkkinen. 30 or 40 like NHL. Yeah. And we're talking like not just Finnish scouts, North American and Swedish scouts made their way over to watch him. Like, he is being, I don't know how high he can rise, but I'm just seeing him. I'm having a hard time not seeing him in the top 50 of this draft. And given how many scouts from NHL teams are there to watch him, I would not be surprised to see him picked in the first round at all. Like, this is a likely, especially in this draft where there are pretty steep cutoffs at different areas of this draft. I would not be shocked at all to see Jase Pulkkinen get drafted in the first round. He is a very, very interesting prospect, and he's been garnering a lot of attention. Like I said, the scouts I've talked to, people who have connections over in Finland, are telling me things that I've barely heard about, like top 10 picks, let alone, these kinds of guys. So when you have a player who's kind of, hiding in the shadows for an entire year and then just pops off entirely this year, ends up on the first pair of Team Finland for the World Juniors. Like, it takes a lot to get there, especially with this Finnish decor. It's a good decor. Like, they've got Kasper Kulanumi, they've got, other options there that they can move around. Like, he's not there by default. He's forced his way up there. Like, this is ridiculous. I'm wondering, by the way, what is the highest an overager has been drafted? I remember Brett Leeson got drafted like in the pretty high third round a couple of years ago.
There are higher ones. I mean, Adam Gajan went 35 just this season. Then we had Yegor Chinarkov go at 20 a couple of years ago.
That's right. I forgot about Yegor Chinarkov.
So there is recent precedent in terms of drafting D+1s at a high level if there's a significant amount of belief in their games. Yeah. So that definitely kind of adds to the possibility here. But I mean, with Pulkkinen, we'll see how he continues in the tournament, and we'll see just how his game time evolves, because while he did play first pairing minutes in this game, he was limited to 60 minutes on the ice, which is more like number 5 minutes. So while on the score sheet he was the first pairing guy, the time on ice doesn't fully reflect that yet. But with how he looked in that game, it's not going to take him long to get past that 20-minute a night barrier. And I think Team Finland would be wise to double down on this hidden gem that they just kind of clearly didn't stumble into. They found him and put him right up their lineup. But damn, what a find.
Yeah, I mean, if he can handle it against Canada and play really, really well and get an assist, I think he can handle Germany. What do you think?
You think?
Yeah.
As a half German, half Canadian, I disagree. I think that Team Germany is a bigger threat, and that Pulkkinen will struggle a lot more in that game than versus Canada. Yeah,
absolutely. Sure. But I'm really. By the way, the assist he got was ridiculously good. I mean, the
Yeah.
way like he caught a puck at the offensive blue line, kind of skated to the middle, and just with no effort, just dangled the player in front of. I think it was Nate Danielson or Owen Beck, like just full on dangled the player in front of him.
Yeah.
Got to the backhand, faked the forehand shot, made a look off pass. Like that's a small detail that matters. A look off pass off to his teammate, who then puts a shot on goal, and Yeri
Yeah.
Lessila picks up the rebound, and like yeah, technically is like a secondary assist, but it was a secondary assist that doesn't happen if Jase Pulkkinen is not doing that. So it's like yeah,
And a very
he's
pretty secondary assist at that.
about as pretty as they get. But yeah, they're wraps things up for a second segment about Jase Pulkkinen. Keep an eye on that name. He's going to be coming up a lot. And again, would not be surprised to see him in the top 50 very soon. But now we're going to get to our third segment where we do our 3 stars of the day, none of which are Jase Pulkkinen, despite how good he played. We'll talk about that on our next segment here, right after these messages from our sponsors over at FanDuel.
As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers Stay Hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in free bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. You can use those bonus bets on anything, ranging from spreads to player props to over and unders and more. Whether you want to bet on your favorite team to win the Super Bowl this year or your least favorite quarterback to throw a couple interceptions the next game, the choice is yours. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Alrighty, so moving on to our third. So I'm going to do our 3 stars of the day for today's action, day 1 of the World Junior Championships group stage. Let's start with our third star. I think Macklin Celebrini is a great third star to have here. Even though he's playing fourth line minutes, I thought he was the best player on the ice for Canada. And we could have given this to Nate Danielson. He did get a goal and an assist, but the goal he got was like, it was just a bounce off his butt. Like I don't think we really count that too much. But yeah, Celebrini was great. He got a goal, but honestly, it was just the overall play. He's I don't think he's going to spend a lot of time on that fourth line, right?
No, he only logged 13 minutes and 19 seconds in that game, and that was with playing some first power play minutes on top of that. So I don't think it'll take long as soon as Canada realizes that he improves their chances of winning because he's already the joint best player in the entire NCAA with his teammate. So yeah, I think playing him up the lineup a little bit over some players that couldn't come close to his level of skill if they got like a ×3 booster. Yeah, like I think Celebrini is going to be pretty impactful pretty soon if he gets more playing time. And we saw in this game that he was able to be impactful even with some pretty slim pickings in terms of minutes. Like with 13 minutes in this game, he was Canada's most impactful player consistently. Every shift I watched him play, he was applying pressure defensively. He was rushing the puck up with haste and with pace and consistently connecting his line mates. There's one good line from one of the commentators in that game that said that talking about his coach at BU saying that like with Celebrini, you don't get one player, you get 3 because he just improves everyone around him. And I saw that in this game for sure. So 100%. I thought that Celebrini is a very worthwhile third star of the day, but take it away with the second star in a game that you took a pretty close look at.
Absolutely. There were so many players that could have chosen for Sweden. We could have put this entire team like that. That's except for Elias Salomonsson. That was, to be frank, that was stupid. But yeah, Felix Ingresorum could have been in here. Jonathan Lekerimäki scored 2 goals. He could have been in there. But I went with the other player who scored 2 goals. I thought Filip Bystedt was fantastic in this game. This is a player who not a lot of people believed in, myself included, in this draft year. I didn't see much that warranted a top 25 pick. I think it was picked up like 23rd or 24th overall, 27th, something like that. Just picked. Like,
it was the first pick that San Jose got back from Arizona in that key trade. I think it's like 22, 23.
Something like that. He was drafted fairly high. I saw him more as like a early to mid second rounder. Had a lot of questions about productivity. I had a lot of questions about the offensive upside, and he's putting those doubts to rest. I mean, he has upped his game offensively. He's become a bona fide shooter. He's become a bona fide net front presence. His playmaking game is up 2 or 3 notches. His hands have even got better. Like, his puck skills overall have improved so much since his draft year. And yeah, he was really, really good in this game, and more than warranted this second star here for Sweden. But again, Lekkerimäki played a really good game. I saw Bystedt affected he affected the score in more ways than Lekkerimäki did. We know what Lekkerimäki can do. You know, there's a reason he was drafted where he was by the Vancouver Canucks. Like, he's a fantastic goal scorer. My question is, you know, can he affect the game outside of that? I still have my doubts, even though his goal scoring ability is translating extremely well, and he's added some layers to his goal scoring ability that have made it even better. And I don't think he'll have much problem scoring at the NHL level. I think that Filip Bystedt overall, especially in this game, showed how much more impactful he can be, how multifaceted he is. Penalty kill, power play, like, so many different areas in which he affected the game. I was really, really impressed with Bystedt, and yeah, he's been proving me wrong since his draft year. Like, he's been that good. But yeah, the first star in this 3-star segment, Filip Mešàr. Even though his line mate Servac Petrovsky scored 2 goals and got an assist, had 3 points, Mešàr got 2 assists, and both assists were primary assists on Petrovsky's 2 goals. And I really thought Mešàr was the best player today in all the games. He impacted the game the way I knew he could in his draft year. The transition ability was kind of lacking, especially last year with Kitchener. But when you get Filip Mešàr on a larger ice surface, you're done. You're done. Like, he's that good. Like, he's able to, just control play extremely well. He moves players left and right. He affects his teammates' routes as well with his positioning and with his routes, and makes it so much easier for his teammates to score. And I really thought overall, of all the players, especially with the leadership he showed after that bad first period, getting on air on TSN, giving that interview, showing belief and trust in his team, and then delivering on that with one of the best periods of hockey I've seen any prospect play in the World Juniors. Like, he was dominant in every single facet of the game. So yeah, are you excited about Filip Mešàr? Because I'm starting to get excited about Filip Mešàr.
I've been excited about Filip Mešàr. I don't know why he was written off by the entire, seemingly the entire Habs fan base.
Yeah.
A loud portion of the Habs fan base online had completely written him off as a valuable prospect this summer because of a relatively disappointing OHL season in terms of production. But there were some really promising underlying numbers, especially in terms of the playmaking ability, which had really taken some big steps last year in the OHL. But Kitchener was a tire fire last year. Just nothing was clicking, and it's been the exact opposite so far this season. So he's riding that wave with his team. But this season, we've seen a Filip Mešàr with all the confidence in the world, with the same exceptional toolkit that he's had for a couple of years now, and he's been using his explosiveness, his agility, his dynamism to really create consistent advantages, even in the neutral zone. Like, we're seeing him, as you said, in transition, leverage his toolkit to create space for himself and for line mates, and to create these high-pace attacks off the rush. And that's what he's really, really good at, especially as a dual-threat piece. And I think the defensive game was also, as you said, a standout quality in this game. Like, he's not going to be like a defensive centerman if he does play down the middle at the NHL level, which is still a big question mark at this point. But being able to put in a big defensive shift definitely improves his B game as a fallback, third liner. And I think if the Habs can add him as a middle six option within the next year and a half, 2 years, that'd be really, really good for the organization.
Yeah, I mean, seeing him in this game, he was stripping players left and right like it was his job. Like, he was doing so much good defensively as well. So yeah, I've never bought into the whole this is an offensive winger thing. He's not. He's really, really good defensively, and especially when you get him playing against his age group on large ice, he knows what to do, where to go, and how to do it. So yeah, I was really, really impressed with Mešàr, and he gets the first star for today's segment. Now, that wraps things up for today's show. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave us a comment letting us know what you want us to talk about next. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, make sure to make us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, make sure to check out Locked On Sports Today. They're a 24/7 hours news channel who've got all the updates for you regarding every sport out there. And make sure to tune in for our next show as we continue our prospects coverage. We'll see you on Friday as we'll record a breakdown of the 2 days of action there. This has been Hattie Kalikesh with Sebastian High. We hope you tune in next time.